The awakening signal. The galaxy had grown quiet in ways that troubled even the oldest civilizations. Where once human colonies had dotted the rim worlds, now only empty stations drifted in the void. For 100 years, not a single human voice had spoken across the communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. Council leader Zektar stood before the great viewing wall of Central Station, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched cargo ships move between the docking bays. His species, the Sauridians, had lived for millennia and remembered when humans first appeared in their small primitive vessels. Those early meetings had been tense but hopeful. Humans brought curiosity and energy that infected other species with possibilities. That energy had vanished overnight. The human colonies had simply gone dark one day, their inhabitants gone without explanation or farewell. Search parties found empty cities with meals still warm on tables. Ships sat powered down in harbors with no crews aboard. Personal belongings remained in place as if people had simply stepped outside for a moment and never returned. The mystery had haunted galactic civilization for decades. Some believed humans had transcended physical existence. Others thought they had found some hidden paradise beyond known space. A few whispered that humans had been destroyed by something terrible that might return for the rest of them. Zektar had seen the reports from every investigation. Teams of the galaxy's best scientists had studied the abandoned human worlds for clues. They found technology that worked perfectly but served no obvious purpose. Machines that hummed with power but produced nothing detectable. Installations that seemed to point toward the empty darkness beyond the galactic rim. The Sauridian leader touched a communication panel with one clawed finger. The device connected him to Admiral Torgon, commander of the Hive Collective's military forces. The insectoid being appeared on the screen as a shimmering hologram, his compound eyes reflecting the light from multiple angles. "Any word from the survey fleets?" Zektar asked, though he already knew the answer from Torgon's posture. "Nothing new," the Admiral replied, his mandibles clicking with frustration. "The Rim Patrol detected another energy surge from the void last week, but it faded before our ships could investigate. Whatever lies beyond our sensors remains hidden." The energy surges had been growing stronger for months. Each pulse seemed to come from deeper in the unexplored regions where no star charts existed. Some theorists believed the signals represented natural phenomena from ancient cosmic events. Others worried they indicated something far more concerning approaching known space. Dr. Sarah Kim would have found the signals fascinating. The human scientist had worked alongside Sauridian researchers for years before the Great Disappearance. Her brilliant mind had solved problems that stumped entire alien research teams. Zektar still kept her final research notes in his personal archives, hoping she might return someday to continue her work. The communication panel chimed with an emergency signal that made both leaders freeze. Emergency codes rarely activated across the galactic network. When they did, the news usually changed everything. "This is Deep Space Monitor Station 7, came a voice that sounded barely controlled. "We're detecting massive energy signatures emerging from the void. Multiple contacts approaching at unprecedented velocity. Request immediate backup to sector designation 077. Torgon's image flickered as he diverted attention to his own command systems. "I show 17 distinct energy signatures moving in perfect formation. Their approach vector suggests they're heading directly for Council space." Zektar felt cold fear settle in his chest. Unknown ships approaching from the direction where humans had vanished could not be coincidence. After a century of silence, something was finally emerging from the darkness beyond the rim. The first ship appeared on long-range sensors 12 hours later. The vessel's design combined familiar elements with technology that defied easy classification. Hull plates shifted and reconfigured as the ship moved, adapting to unknown requirements. Energy patterns flowing across its surface created displays that changed too quickly for alien eyes to follow. More ships emerged from the void in steady succession. Each vessel looked different from the others, yet all shared design elements that suggested common origins. The fleet moved with coordination that impressed even veteran military observers. No communication signals passed between the ships, but they maintained perfect formation across millions of kilometers. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching familiar constellations grow brighter as her people approached the galaxy they had left behind. The century of isolation had changed humanity in ways their former neighbors could never imagine. Where once they had been explorers and traders, they had become something far more purposeful. Elena remembered the day her people had made their choice. Earth's governments had reached a unanimous decision that shocked even their closest alien allies. Humanity would leave known space voluntarily to pursue developments that required absolute secrecy. The galaxy would be safer if humans evolved away from civilizations that might fear the implications of what they were becoming. The century in the void had been productive beyond anyone's expectations. Human colonies had grown into massive installations that stretched across entire solar systems. Technology had advanced along paths that no other species had ever explored. Most importantly, humanity had solved problems that threatened every living being in the galaxy. Captain Marcus. Chen joined Elena at the observation deck as the human fleet approached the boundary of council space. His weathered face showed the marks of decades spent commanding vessels in the hostile environment beyond the rim. The deep space missions had taught humanity lessons that no amount of peaceful exploration could provide. The patrol ships are maintaining their distance, Marcus reported, checking readings on his personal scanner. They're definitely curious, but they haven't attempted any aggressive actions. Elena nodded acknowledgement while studying the tactical displays that showed alien vessel positions throughout the region. The galaxy's military forces had changed significantly during humanity's absence. New alliances had formed while old partnerships had dissolved. The power balance had shifted in ways that would complicate the negotiations ahead. Open communication channels on all standard frequencies, Elena ordered. It's time to announce our return. The message that reached every major world in council space was simple, but carried implications that would reshape galactic civilization. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez representing the Human Confederation. We have returned from our period of development and request permission to address the Galactic Council regarding matters of mutual concern. Zek Tar received the transmission while meeting with emergency session delegates who had gathered to discuss the approaching fleet. The familiar human accent in Elena's voice brought back memories of countless diplomatic meetings from decades past. But something in her tone suggested that the humans who had returned were not the same people who had departed. Humanity requests immediate council session to discuss threats that endanger all civilized worlds. Elena's message continued. We have spent the past century preparing for challenges that your current technology cannot address. Time is shorter than you realize. The implications sent shockwaves through every major government in known space. Humans had apparently left not because of internal problems or philosophical differences, but to prepare for some greater danger. Their voluntary exile had been a century-long military preparation that no other species had suspected. Dr. Sarah Kim materialized on the communication screen when Zektar responded to the human message. Her appearance had changed dramatically during the century of absence. Where once she had seemed young and eager, now she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had solved impossible problems. Her eyes held knowledge that made even the ancient Ceridian leader feel inexperienced. Council leader Zektar, Sarah said with genuine warmth despite the formal circumstances. I hope you've been well during our absence. We have much to discuss about developments that occurred while we were away. Zektar struggled to maintain diplomatic composure while joy and confusion battled in his mind. Dr. Kim, your people vanished without explanation. We searched for decades trying to understand what happened to humanity. Sarah's expression grew serious as she considered how much to reveal during their initial contact. We discovered evidence of an approaching threat that required immediate preparation. The galaxy's safety demanded that we develop countermeasures in secret. Our return indicates that the preparation period has ended. The human fleet took positions throughout the outer regions of Council space, while diplomatic preparations began. Each ship maintained polite distance from alien installations while demonstrating capabilities that amazed military observers. Human vessels could accelerate beyond theoretical limits while their energy signatures suggested power sources that surpassed anything in galactic databases. Elena prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history, while her people gathered intelligence about changes that had occurred during their absence. The galaxy had remained relatively peaceful, but troubling reports suggested that might change soon. Deep space monitoring stations had detected unusual activity from regions that bordered the void where humanity had spent their exile. Admiral Torgon studied tactical analyses of human fleet, capabilities with growing amazement and concern. The returning ships used technology that made existing military doctrines obsolete, energy weapons that ignored known defensive systems, propulsion methods that allowed instantaneous changes in direction, communication networks that operated faster than light without detectable transmission methods. The insectoid commander transmitted his concerns to Zektar through encrypted channels that he hoped human technology could not intercept. These are not the same humans who left us. They have become something that may be more dangerous than any threat they claim to protect us from. Zektar shared those concerns but recognized that humanity's return came at a time when the galaxy needed new solutions to old problems. Recent intelligence reports described strange disappearances along the rim regions where human colonies had once existed. Entire systems had gone dark with no explanation or distress signals. The pattern suggested something was moving toward inhabited space from the deep void. Elena's second message arrived as emergency sessions convened on every major world. The threat we prepared for has begun moving toward Council space. Our return marks the beginning of a conflict that will determine whether galactic civilization survives the next decade. We offer our assistance, but time grows short for preparation. The galaxy that had spent a century wondering about humanity's fate was about to discover that their former neighbors had been preparing for a war that would make all previous conflicts seem like minor disagreements between neighbors. The new balance. The emergency council session convened on Proxima Station, the galaxy's largest diplomatic facility. Representatives from 57 different species gathered in the Great Chamber that had hosted peace negotiations for centuries. The massive dome could accommodate thousands of delegates, but today felt cramped as news of humanity's warnings spread through the assembled crowds. Elena entered the chamber wearing simple human diplomatic attire that contrasted sharply with the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by alien representatives. Her calm confidence commanded attention from beings who remembered when humans had been junior partners in galactic affairs. The century of absence had clearly transformed humanity's place in the cosmic order. Zektar called the session to order, while his scaled hands trembled slightly with anticipation. The formal protocols seemed inadequate for addressing the crisis that Elena's warnings had described. Unknown threats approaching from the void demanded responses that existing treaties and procedures could not provide. Ambassador Vasquez, Zektar began, his voice carrying clearly through translation systems that converted his words into dozens of alien languages. Your people's return raises questions that require immediate answers. What threat did humanity discover that justified a century of secrecy? Elena stepped forward to the central speaking platform, while holographic displays activated around the chamber. Images began flowing across the screens that showed star maps extending far beyond the boundaries of known space. The data revealed cosmic structures that no alien species had ever suspected existed in the deep void. The Devourers, Elena announced, her voice carrying weight that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. A force that has consumed entire galaxies across cosmic time. They move through the universe like a plague, destroying all organic life and converting matter into resources for continued expansion. The chamber fell into complete silence as more images appeared on the displays. Massive structures that dwarfed entire star systems, fleets of vessels that numbered in the billions, energy signatures that suggested technology capable of dismantling planets for raw materials. The scope of the threat made traditional military planning seem pathetically inadequate. Admiral Torgon's compound eyes reflected the holographic data, while his mind struggled to process the implications. How did humanity discover this threat when our own deep space surveys detected nothing unusual? Dr. Sarah Kim appeared on a communication screen that materialized beside Elena's platform. Her image transmitted from the human flagship that remained positioned at the edge of Council space. The scientist's expression held knowledge that seemed almost too heavy for one person to carry. We found evidence in the abandoned installations you discovered on our former colonies, Sarah explained. The technology we left behind wasn't meant for any practical purpose you could recognize. It was designed to monitor quantum fluctuations that indicate devourer movement through folded space. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Humans had been preparing for this threat since before their departure. using their colonies as early warning systems that continued operating even after their creators vanished. The century of exile had been spent building countermeasures for an enemy that most species could not even detect. Captain Marcus. Chen's voice joined the transmission from his position aboard the human command ship. The Devourer advanced scouts entered our galaxy 18 months ago. They've been systematically eliminating isolated systems along the rim to test our defensive capabilities. The disappearances you've been investigating were their preliminary attacks. Sektar felt ancient fear settle in his chest as he understood the implications. The strange energy surges from the void had not been natural phenomena or mysterious signals from humanity. They had been weapons fire from battles between human forces and advanced elements of the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever faced. Elena continued her presentation while new tactical data appeared on the displays around the chamber. Our century in the void was spent studying Devourer technology and developing countermeasures that conventional military science could never achieve. We learned their tactics, mapped their movement patterns, and built weapons specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. The human fleet had been engaging Devourer scouts for over a year, while the galaxy remained unaware of the conflict. Each battle had provided intelligence that helped refine human tactics and technology. The knowledge gained from those encounters would be crucial for the larger war that was approaching rapidly. But not all species were prepared to accept human leadership in the coming conflict. The Crystalline Collective's representative spoke first, her musical tones conveying doubt and suspicion. How do we know this threat is real and not a fabrication designed to justify human expansion into territories we claimed during your absence? Elena had expected this reaction from species that remembered human ambition from previous decades. Trust would need to be earned through actions rather than words, but time was running short for gradual diplomacy. The Devourer main force was only months away from reaching inhabited systems. You'll have proof within 7 days, Elena replied calmly. Our long-range sensors show a major Devourer fleet approaching the Kepler system. They intend to eliminate the mining colonies there as a demonstration of power before launching their primary assault. We can stop them, but only with immediate cooperation from Council forces. Admiral Torgon's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed tactical scenarios in his mind. The Kepler system contained 12 million civilians spread across orbital platforms and asteroid installations. Traditional evacuation would be impossible in the time available, and conventional defenses would be useless against technology that could dismantle entire worlds. What kind of cooperation do you require? Torgon asked, though he already suspected the answer would challenge everything the galaxy's military forces believed about warfare. Captain Chen's image appeared alongside. Elena's, as the human military commander, took control of the tactical briefing. We need your fleets to serve as decoys while our specialized vessels engage the Devourer technology directly. Your ships cannot damage their primary weapons, but you can distract them long enough for us to strike critical targets. The plan horrified alien military doctrine that emphasized protecting friendly forces while minimizing casualties. Human strategy apparently accepted that some ships would be destroyed to achieve objectives that conventional tactics could never accomplish. The approach reflected humanity's evolution during their century of preparation. Sektar studied the tactical projections while weighing political implications that would reshape galactic civilization regardless of the battle's outcome. Accepting human leadership would establish them as the galaxy's primary military power. Refusing their assistance might result in the destruction of everything the Council had built over millennia. The Ceridian Republic will provide whatever support you require, Sektar announced after moments of tense silence. Our ships will follow human tactical direction for this engagement. Other species began adding their support as the reality of the situation overcame political concerns. The Hive Collective offered their entire frontier fleet. The Aquatic Federation promised their fastest vessels for reconnaissance duties. Even the suspicious Crystalline Collective agreed to provide support ships for the combined operation. Dr. Sarah Kim coordinated the joint preparations from her laboratory aboard the human flagship while alien commanders struggled to understand technology that defied their scientific understanding. Human weapons operated on principles that most species had never encountered. Energy systems drew power from sources that seemed to violate conservation laws. Communication networks connected human ships through methods that bypassed normal spacetime completely. The combined fleet assembled at the edge of the Kepler system just hours before Devourer forces arrived. 300 alien vessels took positions around 12 human ships that looked insignificant compared to the massive Council battlecruisers, but appearances were deceiving in ways that would become clear once the fighting began. Elena watched the enemy approach through sensors that detected across multiple dimensions of folded space. The Devourer fleet consisted of 50 massive vessels that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever built. Each ship carried enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds, while their defensive systems could absorb damage that would destroy normal fleets. But humanity had studied these enemies for over a century. Every weakness had been cataloged and exploited. Every tactical pattern had been anticipated and countered. The Devourers were about to discover that they faced opponents who understood them better than they understood themselves. The battle began when Captain Chen's ship emerged from folded space directly above the Devourer command vessel. Human weapons struck with precision that amazed alien observers, targeting specific systems that caused cascading failures throughout the enemy ship. Within minutes, the largest Devourer vessel was spinning helplessly while its weapons powered down. Admiral Torgon led the alien decoy force in a frontal assault that drew Devourer attention while human ships struck from impossible angles. The insectoid commander watched in amazement as human vessels appeared and disappeared throughout the battle zone, striking targets before vanishing back into folded space. The engagement lasted only 4 hours, but it demonstrated humanity's evolution in ways that would reshape galactic civilization. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the combined fleet had achieved victory with minimal casualties despite facing an enemy that should have been unstoppable. Elena transmitted the battle results to every major world in Council space, while her people prepared for the larger conflict ahead. This engagement was only a preliminary test. The Devourer main force consists of over 10,000 ships backed by planet-sized installations. We can defeat them, but only if the galaxy accepts the changes that victory will require. The weeks following the Kepler battle brought negotiations that established humanity's role as the galaxy's protectors. The Council granted humans territories and resources needed for expanded military preparation, while accepting human command authority for the coming war. Species that had once viewed humans as junior partners now looked to them for salvation. Dr. Sarah Kim worked alongside alien scientists to adapt human technology for use by Council forces. The process required compromises that challenged both human secrecy and alien prejudices. Sharing advanced weapons with species that might someday become enemies required trust that few humans felt comfortable providing. But the alternative was extinction for everyone. The Devourer threat would not wait for perfect solutions or complete trust between species. Cooperation was necessary for survival, even if it meant accepting risks that previous generations would have considered unacceptable. Captain Chen prepared humanity's expanded fleet for battles that would determine whether galactic civilization survived the next century. The human ships had been joined by hybrid vessels that combined alien construction with human technology. The mixed fleets represented unprecedented cooperation between species that had never truly trusted each other. Zektar addressed the final council session before the main battle began. His ancient voice carried sadness for the galaxy they were leaving behind and hope for what might emerge from the coming conflict. We face enemies that threaten every living being in known space. Humanity has returned to lead us through darkness that we could never navigate alone. Whatever emerges from this war will be something new for all our species. Elena stood beside alien leaders, who had become partners in humanity's century-long preparation for this moment. The galaxy would never again be the collection of separate civilizations that had existed before the Devourer threat emerged. Victory would require unity that transcended species boundaries and prejudices that had divided them for millennia. The human century of silence was ending, but their voice would now speak for every species that chose survival over isolation. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had become during their long exile, and whether their evolution had prepared them all for the challenges that lay ahead in the darkness between the stars.